4 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. This is Classic in the Morning Time, Classic Radio and GBN Television. Welcome to another edition of To The Point for today, the 11th day of the month of October. Indeed, it's a pleasure being here with you. Thanks to all of our listeners across all of the platforms, including our social media platform, Facebook and YouTube. We want to say thanks for being here and thanks for being part of this glorious conversation. And indeed, we want to say good morning to the Honorable Philip Telesford, Minister for Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs with responsibility for community development and housing. Good morning to you, Minister. Welcome to the program. How are you?
Good morning, Innocent. I am very well indeed, and good morning to the rest of Grenada. Those of you who are here on island and those of you in the diaspora, a very good morning to you all.
Well, I just want to clearly on one thing. I'm not as innocent as it might look. I'm actually JC. I know you get it. Okay. I know you get it. You get the personalities all mixed up, but that's fine. You are forgiven.
Please, may I ask you?
Joseph Cadore. But call me JC, and that would be fine. That would be perfectly fine for the purpose of this morning's conversation. But either way, it's a pleasure being here with you. We're going to jump headfirst into this. We're not going to get into any pleasantries, not this morning. We're going to jump straight first. And I think I know, in more recent times, the topic of conversation has to do with you unfold things as it is within the Housing Authority. I know there was the last we've heard that the authority and it seemed to surprise the former health minister. She was on my program with me yesterday, and that the housing authority financially that they're in the grey. What's happening in there?
Yes, indeed. JC, she will be surprised. She will be surprised because when we got into office, we too were surprised because there were 5 years of audit report not done. 5 consecutive years. So if you have not been audited for 5 years, or if those reports have not been submitted to cabinet for 5 consecutive years, obviously the policymakers at that level would not be aware of the actual state of affairs of the organization.
Quite interested. What does that say, though? What are the telltale signs, and what are the lessons to be learned?
The lessons to be learned is that policymakers have to begin to do their jobs. They have to begin to make policy. They have to insist on performance. They have to keep a keen eye on the operations of not just the ministries, but the statutory bodies and all assets of government that is under their control. So they have a responsibility to the state to do those things. And if they join salary on a monthly basis, they have a professional responsibility to conduct the affairs of the state in a professional manner and deliver to the people of Grenada what is due to them.
And I guess you can well appreciate with that indictment being laid at the feet of the former administration, that it therefore puts you, the ruling administration, the eyes and ears of the people is upon you to ensure that you don't fall into the same thing.
Yes, and we've heard stories of how the previous administration conducted a business. It was basically a one-man show. So sometimes you have a minister is just there, just as a figurehead, not necessarily being able to really execute their functions in a proper manner. And sometimes when you look at what has happened, we must sympathize with the ministers, the line ministers for the various ministries, because really and truly they didn't have the authority. Well, they had it legally, but in terms of being able to execute it in a practical sense, they just have to follow the political directorate, who was basically a one-man army, really.
That means outside of the Housing Authority, then is that a reflection and an indictment against the entire ministry itself? Because then that makes your work hard, quite difficult to change that culture.
mean, we know what we're about. So changing the culture, yeah. Changing the culture is always a process. It takes a period of time. I'm not sure if culture change can happen in 5 years, understanding what it means to make that kind of shift. But in terms of fulfilling our professional responsibilities, I think it's a simple process. We follow the legislation that surrounds housing authority, insist that first and foremost, you have a proper strategic plan in place, annual business plan to be submitted to the cabinet and to Parliament, that the audit is conducted, when it's due, and that management is, and the board in particular, is held responsible for their decisions. So we have to keep that kind of professional relationship going at all times. If we do that, it gives first and foremost those professionals at those bodies, in particular this time, the housing authority, you empower them to be able to function properly without undue political interference. You see, so that is what really helps these professionals to feel good about themselves, to want to make decisions and stand by them and insist that things are done in a particular way and people are held responsible, and that they can see the performance of the organization, the growth of the organization happening. And when those things happen, what does it do? It positioned the organization to be able to get better salaries, that there's a lift in the profile of the organization, you feel better about yourselves, and you see growth, you're contributing to economic development, and all of these things. So it really does help indeed. So what we're doing, I believe is the best thing for the country. I know there's quite a lot of noise out there, and those noises, they deliberate, and it is meant to distract, it is meant to derail us from where we are going. But we are mandated by our principal, who is the chairman of cabinet and prime minister, to keep focused on delivering what we have to deliver to the Grenadian people. And that is exactly what we are doing.
I'm happy you've cleared the air on that. Let's look at what's happening the housing project, and there's been a lot of noise, as you've intimated. There's been a lot of noise. You said that that's just distraction. Is that really what it is, or is there more to that meets the eye as it relates to what's happening now with the housing project? There's issues relating to who's getting, who's receiving, who's not receiving, the issue of cost, whether or not it is economically viable, is it low income, is it free? Let's have that conversation.
Willingly so. So first and foremost, there was a committee of cabinet set up, and there is a structure. And as a new government, we followed the structure. So we had one person who's a chairperson appointed by cabinet, who is not a government official, right? That person was appointed by cabinet to chair the selection committee. And then we had the 2 PSs in the ministry, so that's 3 people so far. And then we had the general manager of housing authority and the planning officer. That's 5 people on that committee. And to assist at the various locations where those units are being distributed, we had 2 representatives from that particular area or parish to assist, so that, because they supposedly would have first-hand knowledge or at least an idea as to who these people are. So, for example, if Tom Jones is applying or has applied and Tom Jones lives in New York, automatically that person would be able to say, no, this person's not residing in Grenada, or this person has a 2-story building and they're just taking this unit for investment purposes. So they help to shine light on the situation so that the committee can make a better decision.
Can you talk to us about the application process, persons, because this conversation regarding this housing project is one that started under the former administration. You came in and you had to in order to make the accommodations livable appropriately, there were some changes that had to be made, upgrades. The process of who got those houses, was there a new process, or were those applications or applicants already in train, just waiting for final approval?
Right. So the process that was followed were that we reopened for new applicants, because we understand that people's circumstances may have changed over the period of time. We understood that. So we opened back up the process, keeping those who have already applied. We keep that, and we added to that file any new applicants. We specifically told people they did not need to reapply because their first application is as good as new. And we didn't have that many new applicants. Yeah? And we processed all of those applications. And truth be told, the selection committee went through every single application. And there are a lot of people who met the criteria. They met the criteria. But the problem that they face with, you have thousands of applications, but only 647 units. And the reality is, even if you satisfied the conditions, you just may not be able to get the unit, simply because we do not have sufficient to distribute. And this is where the committee had to make a tough decision. I can say to you, I have not a clue. I've never attended those meetings as to how that process went. I knew it was a long drawn-out process because it started in October last year, and I believe the process actually finished around April, thereabouts. This, in terms of the actual selection, it went on for quite a few months.
So the understanding is that there was a reopening of the selection process. You kept all of the old applicants, and you made you extended invitations for new ones. Yeah. You've had a number of persons who met the criteria, but the challenge is that you had more persons that satisfy the criteria, and while there was just limited number of housing units.
That was correct.
What then was eventually done to determine, now that you've had such an imbalance, can you speak as the minister, as to what was the final determination that was given into consideration as to who would eventually end up with those facilities?
So the committee, two underlying conditions that the committee actually used in the final round had to do ability to service that debt or to pay for the units and need. Right? They also tried to ensure that the public servants were given some measure of preference. Police officers, nurses, general public servants, teachers, and so on and so on. So that is what they sought to do, because we understand also that a lot of public servants they work for minimal wage, and as a result of that, we have to try to assist. And so they look at the public servants, they look at the need, they look at ability to be able to service this.
And I'm getting the sense, though, listen to you, Minister, given that the audits, the review of the Housing Authority indicated that they were in financial gray, that I'm getting the sense that ability to pay became more or less the guiding light as to how and whom those houses will be distributed to, because conversation had been banded that there are persons that were financially indigent, persons that literally that could not satisfy any of those criteria, that the previous administration had made allowances for at least 8 or so, the number of them, that persons who got that the government saw the need to provide them with housing, as you can well appreciate, home housing being a basic necessity. Was that consideration ever given as part of this process? And if so, why not?
So, first and foremost, the housing authority was not in gray, it was in red.
Okay.
All right? It was in red. What informed the decision to engage financial institutions? A number of things. But one of the things had to do with non-compliance. Non-compliance is either the government of Grenada decides, look, we're going to give these units outright to the citizens of Grenada, or we're going to make it affordable and distribute it based on certain criteria. What was obtained in phase 1 is the same application in phase 2. In that, the decision was to make the units available based on your ability to be able to pay a small amount on a monthly basis. This is where we are. But the non-compliance rate was about 80%. 80%. That is non-compliance. That is people who decided that they will not pay for the units. Why? Because they got a gift from government. That's how they saw it. Look, they signed an agreement that says you got to pay a particular amount on a monthly basis. Mm-hmm. I was told by the manager that on leaving, on obtaining the units and walking away the very said day, many people said they were not going to pay a single cent. So said, so done. When we came into office, we visited some of the sites, and I can speak about Mongay in particular. And there are many people, even before we actually started the process of visiting those sites, approached my office as line minister and said to me, look, we are not animals. The government is treating us like animals because our building where we live is in a poor state of disrepair. Right? The story is told of a lady who died because of ingesting fungus. I hope that is not true. The story is told of people getting shocks in their homes by touching the switch or even touching the wall. The story is told of feces backing up into the sink.
Is that just independent stories, gay and malicious, or have they been substantiated?
Well, many people in Mongay said that, gave us that story.
I guess they say 10,000 Frenchmen cannot be wrong. Well,
they cannot be wrong.
We'll hope. Well, let me ask you though, Minister, because central to all of this, and I understand the argument that's been put forward for the Housing Authority, they have to be a financially viable organization, and I understand that thoroughly. However, notwithstanding that, you would certainly be able to appreciate that as a government, and as a minister, and as a government, that we do have a responsibility to the indigent persons, understanding that we live in trying times. What can be done? What plans are being made to get to that?
I'll get to that shortly, because what we're doing here is not ignoring the indigent. We're helping people to be more responsible. We are creating a fund so that we can continue to maintain these units also. And that is why I'm speaking about the maintenance of these units. Because we cannot afford for people to be living in these conditions. By rights, if the Ministry of Health and the Physical Planning Authority is actually operating under the law, these units should be shut down. No, seriously. They should be shut down, because people ought not to be made to be living in these conditions. Added to that, you have an organization called the Housing Authority of Grenada. Well, the Housing Authority of Grenada should have some leg room or elbow room to be able to function as the authority for housing development in Grenada. Now let me address the indigent question. At this ministry and at Housing Authority, there are programs that deals with the indigent also. We build on a weekly basis. We build houses for people, free. And in some cases, you may just have to pay $100. Depends on the situation. This is what is happening now as we speak. Added to that, there is a repair program under the ministry where we go in and repair people's houses. Free. As we speak.
So am I getting a sense? Last
point, sorry. And as we speak, the WASH program has been launched to eradicate pit latrine throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. An aggressive elimination program towards the pit latrine and giving people a sense of pride in themselves. So if you're talking about the indigent, I'm saying to you that the programs are well entrenched within the ministry, within Housing Authority, and under the WASH program to deal with all of these facets.
But let me ask you though, the persons that did not, because while they qualified for the houses, you did it intimate, there's just a limited amount. What procedure, what was the process? Were they then said, okay, you did not qualify here, however, they were offered, these are the options that are available, that you don't qualify under this program, however, these are the secondary options that are available, and they be given priority?
No, so that is not how it happens. And let me say this. Housing is a very touchy subject nationally, and I might add globally. And you see, because that is a fundamental, a basic right of citizens worldwide. And people from many different circumstances may need housing. Yesterday, you might not need a house because you're living with somebody, coexisting, but something happened and you recognize your living condition becomes untenable. It is an evolving process. It continues to happen. So it is something that is always here with us. But the government of Grenada must be responsive. And that is why we have all of these programs in place. It deals on a case-by-case basis. When they come in, we respond as expeditiously as possible to be able to resolve these problems. That is where we are.
The challenge, Minister, of delinquency, what sort of provisions is made, and how is the ruling administration attempting? What sort of process is in place to ensure compliance? If not, we may just end up with a recurring decimal
in
for
respect
property.
of right. So this, in respect of these phase 2, the homes or the units are being financed by a third party, by one of the financial institutions. You have the credit unions, the banks, the GDP, the NIS, and so on and so on and so on. We have met with these organizations. We've basically, in principle, agreed on certain conditions on which people would be able to apply for these houses to make it very easy for them. The challenge that we face now, that there is a lot of speculation and misinformation. So I receiving a letter from the Housing Authority saying that I qualify, and saying to you that you need to, for example, confirm whether or not you will accept this offer within 2 weeks. Some people are saying that you have to tell the Housing Authority that you have to be able to pay for the units in 2 weeks. That is furthest from the truth. All we are saying that you have applied, in some cases, years now, a month now. You have so qualified or selected. We just need you to sign on the dotted lines, telling us whether or not you have accepted this offer. And based on my readings, at least 90% of the people, I didn't check in the recent week, so I'm not sure, but 90% of the people on receiving the letter signed on the spot. There might have been a few who walked away and had to come back with the letter. Maybe they needed someone to read it for them and explain it to them and so on and so on. But that is not actually paying for the unit. All it's saying, thank you for the offer, I accept it, and then they now move to one of those financial institutions that has agreed to finance these units. And the conditions have already been set in place for them. Very simple process. But if they take this and they listen to what is being noised about in the open space, on social media and everywhere else, personally, I listen to these things, and if I am one of the recipients of these houses, I'll be scared. I'm going to waste my time going to a financial institution because I would think I wouldn't get through. But I want to say to everyone who is listening to this program this morning, please visit the financial institution of your choice. If you're not too sure where you should visit, you can also speak to those at the Housing Authority, and they can assist in guiding you. Please do not listen to the false narratives and the misinformation that is being deliberately peddled to make this process fail.
Thank you, Minister. 28 minutes actually onto the hour of 10 o'clock. We take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Minister, we look at we delve into the issue of cost. Some have argued what's being bandied about now, $50,000 plus $70,000, seems to be out of the reach of the average Grenadian. We get your thoughts on that when we come back from the break.
From the Grenada Planned Parenthood Association. We offer STI screening, gender-based violence counseling, prenatal and postnatal checks, injectables, condoms, pap smears, and other sexual reproductive services. Open Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The Pointu Street, St. George's. Whether male or female, it doesn't matter. We're here to make your life better. Grenada Planned Parenthood Association. For appointments, call 440-3341. Introducing the NIS Dream Loan, where possibilities are boundless and your aspirations are our priority. No matter where life takes you, NIS Dream Loans are here to make your dreams a reality. From purchasing your first plot of land or dream property to renovating spaces, building your home, and seamlessly switching mortgages, we cater to every step of your journey. And here's what sets us apart. We offer easy financing options with competitive interest rates, quick approval processes, and flexible repayment terms. So why wait? Apply now and let our dedicated NIS team guide you through this exciting journey. Visit nisgrenada.org/dream loan or call 440-3309 to book an appointment. Terms and conditions apply. Your dream awaits.
For a limited time, the NLA has dropped all of the 2x balls from the multi-X draw. This means that you, our valuable players, have greater chances of multiplying your winnings up to 5 times more in our 2x drop promotion. Yay! And that's not all. As an additional bonus, there will be fewer free play or FP balls to draw from too. Now you have more reasons to add multi-X to your playway bets. So, value your dreams, win your way, and multiply your winnings up to 5 times more in the NLA's 2x Dropped promotion. Promo runs until Friday, 20th October, 2023. Must be 18 years or older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
Welcome back to the program. 25 minutes on to the hour. My guest this morning is Minister Philip Telesford, Minister for Social Development, Housing and Gender Affairs with responsibility for community development. Minister, added to this, we're going to open the lines to entertain your calls. The numbers on screen, or for those of you in radio, is 435-2041. I did say to you we want to get into the issue of the costing, but before we get there, there seem to be a lot of disparity in terms of maybe not disparities, misinformation that you've hinted to, that seem to be clouding the process. Can you in any way share with us details of that contractual arrangement that was made with the tenants or homeowners, or the engagement that they will be having with the Housing Authority, and the report, based on the report that was delivered, the findings, was that information, was it laid before the Parliament of the country?
No, the report, that findings was not laid before the Parliament of the country. The report was laid before the Cabinet. It was not a parliamentary commissioned report, and so there was no need for it to be laid before the Parliament unless it is so directed by the Prime Minister or the Cabinet itself.
Regarding the contracts, can you share with us, in as succinct a way as possible, what was some of the specifics of the contracts?
Which contract are you speaking about?
Well, we're assuming the contracts that was given to the tenants, because of course, repayments, whatever it is. Does the process involve any contractual arrangement, written, signed document that says, "I am receiving this. This is what's this is the expected."
Phase 2. Are you speaking of phase 2? The distribution of these houses now.
What about phase 1? Was there one in phase 1?
Yeah, there was a contract in phase 1. Right. So the contract spoke about and all of them have variations in terms of the amount to be paid, right? Mm-hmm. Because it was done based on the square footage of the various units and so on. So people had to pay a fixed amount with a 3% interest every single month to the Housing Authority of Grenada. That was a basic arrangement. So, and the monies range from $150 to $350, inclusive of 3% interest. So that is what it is.
Did it make any? Was there any specifics as it relates to delinquency? What are the options? And I would ask him that whether there was, and if so, if not, how does the administration? What plans is there to ensure that we reduce on that 80% delinquency?
I can speak to the plans. The plans are, first and foremost, is to remove political interference from the Housing Authority of Grenada and allow the management to do the work, first and foremost. So what they have begun to do, I know they have issued some letters, and some weeks ago it was only about 10%, just about 38 people out of 378 people, just 38 responded. Now I am told, and I meet with the chair and the manager every month. I have not had one for October yet. By the end of this month, I'll get an update as to where we are. But I'm told that people are trickling in. So the process, and not just trickling in, people are beginning to pay up, right? Because a lot of these people, they are working people. But they also have an issue. Their issue was that the place is in a poor state of repair. They needed it to be done. And so if Housing Authority is not repairing, because that's part of the condition, that Housing Authority takes responsibility for the repair of the public areas, right? Housing Authority was not doing that. And they could not have done it because there was no money to do it, right? Mm-hmm. And people were not paying, and they're not repairing, so it's just like a free fall.
So I'm seeing there was a failure on both sides.
Yes.
Failures on both sides. We go to the telephone lines. There's a caller.
Let me just add, because I don't want to everybody one, but I think I need to do this. There are a lot of people who are paying the bills, and I say a lot in terms of the percentage, that 20%.
Well, that's not a lot, Minister. 20% is, I would not even refer to that as a lot. That's a recipe for failure in any business.
Yes, that is true. That is also true. But we want to respect those who are paying faithfully also.
Well, fair enough. But I think that 20%, 80% the delinquency, I mean, whether it's government or private sector, they will tell you that's not sustainable over a long-term period for any period of time either way. We're going to go back to the telephone lines, 435-2041. Good morning, caller. You are live. Yes, caller, you are live.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Senator and Minister. I want to raise something related to housing, but not necessarily the topic you're talking about. It's related to Lacalome. I want to ask the previous administration to tell us why it is that the Venezuelans refuse to continue building the 300 houses that they had promised. Why is the real reason? Venezuela had promised to build 300 houses in the Lacalome area, basically. And I remember the former Prime Minister of the NDC, Mr. Tillman Thomas, pleading with the Venezuelan embassy when they were giving over the houses here to ask President Chavez to sort of speed up on the other 200. We need to ask ourselves the question why. And also, why after so long? I mean, notwithstanding the fact that the NDC government at the time had a problem, after 10 years of LNP rule, we still haven't had proper ownership of the house, and only a couple people who have ownership because of their connection with the government. I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Minister, are you in any way able to share light? Any light on...
First, it is saying that the government of Grenada, this present regime is committed to resolving the ownership issues at Lacalome. And we've started, we invested $1.2 million in the SWAT system, which is working very efficiently at this time. And we will continue to resolve the process there. I think the gentleman is speaking of a fundamental issue. And I call it the issue of disrespect when governments and peoples of a country make a donation to the people of Grenada, we, the people, and the government have a responsibility to treat that gift with a measure of respect. If we do not repair those units and we continue to let it go into ruins the way that we have been doing for the past 9 or so years, that is a disrespect. We have to find ways to repair these units on a consistent basis, right? And treat those units with respect. People should not be having all of these problems in these units. Look, the People's Republic of China, as part of the agreement with Grenada, established a maintenance system. In that, the government of Grenada had to send a few people to China to train, so that they set up a repairs unit so that they can repair these sites. That was never done.
Am I to assume that efforts have been done to ensure that that's not repeated?
We are working on that now.
Working. When you say working in what context?
Yeah, because what we need to do, we are in the process of putting the committee in place to start selecting the right people, the plumbers, the electricians, the general maintenance people, and so on, to repair every site. But they have to be trained by the People's Republic of China.
But
those internet.
Help me to understand that, because I don't want to labor too much on it. I don't understand, why would we need a committee to set up to determine that we need some plumbers, technicians to do training on plumbing?
I might have used the wrong phraseology there, but the process is being undertaken by the board of directors of the Housing Authority. That's what I needed to say.
Okay. I have a caller that is on the line. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Host, and good morning to the guest, the minister. I trust that you can hear me. I beg to deviate a bit, but all within the realm of Ministry of Social Development, for which the minister is responsible. The issue has to do with persons with disabilities in Grenada. The minister will recall, I'm certain, that at the end of May this year, in a public forum in the St. Paul's Community Center, Mr. Rogers Ferguson, a prominent lawyer in this country, making his presentation to the forum as a panelist, disclosed to the Grenadian people that in his research prior to his presentation, he found out that the Grenada National Council has for the disabled in Grenada, running here for 38 years, has absolutely no teeth and no legal authority to be representing people with disabilities in this country. Yet we continue with this bluff. It is also noted that people with disabilities in this country are continuously treated as non-entities, as if we do not exist. Absolutely no respect is being paid to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons / People with Disabilities in Grenada. I'd like to, and I know I must have made this observation too, that this year's the budget for next year, not a word has been said relative to the development of this group of people in Grenada, which, by the way, is important to note. 2011 census, 26,000 cases. Significant to note. My question to the minister, therefore, what are the plans of the government? Do you propose to adhere to the instructions of the United Nations Convention when it put the convention up in 2008 for immediate implementation? Do you propose to continue disregarding the rights of people with disabilities in Grenada, as did the previous administration, or you propose to do something differently, sir? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller. Mr. Minister? Minister, I think your mic's probably muted, yes? Yes, go ahead. You there?
Right.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was at the center when that discussion happened. And we are, from Ministry, we are making preparations in this budget to treat with people with disability and the GNCD, sorry. We recognize what he has spoken about, and indeed there has to be a closer collaboration between the GNCD and the government of Grenada, and by extension the ministry. And so we are working on that right now. I cannot say exactly what the final piece is going to look like, but that is presently under discussion. Also, legislation to treat with people with disability. We've obtained one from Jamaica, which is a very strong piece of legislation. We're also looking at that. And to answer a question as to whether or not we are prepared to adopt the UN and Charter on the people with disabilities, yes, indeed we are.
Are there timetables that's to work along with those acts that we're working with?
No, I cannot say that off my head. It's a good question, but I cannot give the specifics.
So the possibility is that it may probably be next 5, 10 years, 15 years.
No. We are working on that right now as we speak.
Okay.
But in terms of the timelines for the legislation and the to strengthen GNDC and all of that, I can't say exactly how it's going to be.
I have a caller on the line, but I want us to go back, Minister, to a prior subject matter we were dealing with as it relates to the reports from the authority being a statutory body. When I did ask whether or not that report was laid before the Parliament, your response, you did say it was laid before the Cabinet. My question is, though, and ask me, as a statutory body, aren't all statutory bodies entitled and responsible to make reports, yearly reports, to the Parliament?
Oh, you're speaking about the business plan and the audited reports. Those statutory reports have all been laid before the Parliament. Yes, they have all been laid.
So they've all been laid.
All the statutory reports for the Housing Authority of Grenada has been laid before the Parliament.
Well, I was confusing, but I did ask you prior. You said no, it was laid before the Cabinet. And
I thought you were asking about the findings on the state of repair of those units.
Okay, because I was really totally confused. You did say that was left up to the judgment of the Prime Minister as to whether or not it should be. But we know for a fact that as a statutory body, they make yearly reports. I was trying to determine why not.
No. All statutory reports relative to the Housing Authority of Grenada has been laid before the Parliament.
Have been laid before the Parliament. We go back to the telephone line. Good morning, caller. You're live.
Hi, good morning to you, JC, and to the Minister and to your followers. I am sensing here there is a fundamental problem, and I think it is a problem of conceptualization. And it may not be this administration's fault. They may have inherited it. Because when forget the whole thing about the money, the home is being given free, and so therefore they should be more or less free and that kind of thing. This doesn't make any kind of sense. But we understand that there is a major housing problem in Grenada. And when this project started, it was mentioned as a low-income housing project. But I'm hearing now, and I've heard even before when it was about to be houses are being assigned, there are many public servants who were vying and had more than even given the green light to get houses. Now, in the past, we have had housing programs during the GULP and everywhere else, and they have been clearly defined. Middle-income housing, low-income housing.
Okay.
Now, this one seems to be a confusing mangle. And it may have been done deliberately so people can, be flexible and do things and so within it. And I'm not sure if it may be too late now, but we have to look at, as the Minister said, there are many projects and programs for the indigent and so. And we probably have to have a plan of how we'll deal with the indigent and other low-income persons, how we deal with the middle income.
Okay.
And when we have housing programs, they should be more clearly defined. This one seems to be aiming at being all things to all people.
Okay, cool.
And I think that's where the problem began, and that's where it is right now. That's just my thought of it.
Appreciate it. Mr. Minister, I mean, and I know we touched on that quite briefly. We didn't delve too much into it, but maybe you may want to add to it. Maybe there may just be a lot of gray areas, or we need to start defining. Because he also begs the question that whether or not, and it probably only highlights what's happening in the country, that you have so many quote-unquote working class civil servants who you would probably assume they were part of the working middle class. Is it that we've seen a shift, an erosion of the middle class, that the middle class has now been degraded or relegated to to being poor and vulnerable? If we can find use of another term.
And you might well be right, and that is why we have to do this massive regularization of public servants within the system, because, to put it mildly, the public service has been properly deranged with the invention of contract workers or contract work were in established positions, right?
But why do you want that, Minister? But Minister, I just want you to interject here, though. I just want you to know that personally, I don't think the issue of contract work is really and truly the challenge. Because in the bigger countries, working on contract is part of the norm, really and truly. So I always had this focus on contract workers. That's the order. That's the order of the day.
That's why I said contract work in established positions. But what I was alluding to is that there are three levels of salaries within the service. There is low, very low, medium, and high income earners within the system. So the distribution of these houses will not escape these people because they are part of it. They're part of the low income earners. So they will not escape.
Time is again a challenge for us. We have a caller on the line. Good morning, caller. You're alive.
Good morning. Clearly, Mr. Telesford did not prepare for the interview. He is searching for words, and a lot of his facts are distorted, and I think he needed to prepare some more to give us some more accurate and clear information regarding the housing today. It would appear that these housing the applicants were approved based on low income and their ability to repay based on their low income. They were not approved based on the inability to pay, and these housing were not given as gifts, so they were required to pay. And another issue, we are on the topic of housing. Mr. Rollo should not be allowed to call in on every show and change the topic to the issue of disability. We know he's disabled. Every topic that is on the show, he calls and could I please distort, could I please change the subject? And he changes the subject to his personal issue of disability. We could have a separate show for disability. If he's calling on the topic, he calls on the topic, but he should not be allowed to distort and change every guest, every issue into a disability issue. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, caller. And just to add to the issue, and while I may agree with you partly, I allowed him, given the fact that the minister, it's his portfolio, and he was quite able and competent enough, I thought he was qualified enough to be able to respond to the caller's concern. But I do agree with you on those concerns, though. Mr. Minister, we are literally out of time. I'm just going to give you 2 minutes to offer us your summary.
Thank you again. So these housing units that are being distributed at this time, I know there is a lot of talk about the amount. Well, this government invested in installing closets, and cupboards and really taking the units to a place where when the people begin to occupy these units, they would feel a sense of comfort as well as accomplishment. And that is critical. If you look at what the monthly installments are likely to be, it's a mere $5 a day, or at most $10 a day. And it all depends on what the people take too, because we have already spoken with the furniture dealers, to be part of the mix. So the coats and the cupboards and so on is also part of this. And so people going into the units will be, for the first time, be able to go into a fully furnished units, and working along with the financial institutions will be able to have one debt on the hand to pay, which makes it very, very easy for people occupying these units for the very first time. So they get a brand new start on life and a small repayment over an extended period of time. But most importantly, these units, the distribution of these units represent the single biggest transfer of wealth from states to citizens that the country has ever seen post-independence. The value being transferred as we speak, in terms of cost, as a matter of fact, is $114 million being transferred from state to citizens. Included in this transfer is a massive amount of equity. So you cannot even compare the value, the market value of these units, to what the people are actually going to pay. They will own these units immediately, and they can use this to be able to do anything they want to do, the equity in these units. And this, to me, is the biggest gift that a citizen can expect from government. This is not the least. You're owning these units from day one.
Thank you, Minister. It's 4 minutes, well, not 7, 2 minutes gone past the hour of 10 o'clock. We will be on our scheduled ending time. But again, we want to say thanks to the Minister, Minister Philip Telesford, for being part of today's conversation. A lot we have not, we hope that we'd plan to get into, but maybe let me allow you to stretch a door. And I think my bosses would probably allow me that. The former Ministry Finance Health Minister, Clarice Corbin, yesterday, she raised concerns, and I think it has been raised in different forums regarding the current the purchase rate. And I did ask you, in your estimation, as a low income, does a 50,000/70,000 qualify or meet the threshold for what a low income household should be in Grenada? Minister.
Well, it's a simple yes, because we build timber houses for people right now, right? The bathroom and toilet, 18,000, and the house itself is 22. 18 plus 22, you see what that is already? That's timber houses, that's board houses, right? So it is, to me, if you look at this, you recognize, brother, you got to understand that the cost of materials in Grenada has escalated over the past few years. And so these things are not cheap anymore. Owning a home is the single largest investment that one makes in his lifetime. And this is wealth that you transfer from one generation to another generation.
Fair enough. I will leave.
And under the previous arrangement, you lease maybe for the rest of your life and never get to own it. Because if you were never allowed to pay, you would never be allowed to own it.
Okay, thank you, Minister. 4 minutes gone past the hour. Thank you, Minister Philip Telesford. This is where we leave the conversation for now. Certainly was a pleasure. I want to say thanks to all our listeners, all our viewers across the different spectrums, radio, television, and on social media. Until another day, another time. For those of you that's on television, I leave you for now. I'll rejoin you at 11 o'clock, though, on the mid-morning buzz, when we're talking about plants for World Food Day, and we'll be speaking to officials from the side of the Ministry of Education as it relates to some of the efforts and plans for Child's Month. Until then, so long, everybody. God bless. JC loves you. Have a great one. Thank you, Mr. Minister.